Hi, I'm Mike Richter, and today I'll be talking about taking 100% responsibility for your life. Now, we live in a culture that has the entitlement mentality and a really big emphasis on victim mentality, where we think that just because we exist, we deserve a great job, we deserve a Lamborghini, we deserve a big house, and we don't need to do work for it. And somehow, if we're not getting any of these kind of things, it's somebody keeping us back. When in fact, it's usually us keeping us back because we're not putting in the work or taking time to prioritize certain things in our life to get those things that we want in life. So we'll talk about taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in life, giving up on excuses, as well as something called the magic arrow formula. This is the bottom line of everything associated with this topic. We'll also talk about giving up on complaining, because complaining doesn't do a whole lot of good unless you're looking for pity. But if you're looking for pity, chances are you're not getting to where you want to be in life. So let's go ahead and change that. And finally, we'll wrap up with the idea that you create or allow it your reality. So, being 100% responsible. The first question is, are you? I know that I haven't always been 100% responsible for my life. I used to think that my circumstances were fixed, and just because I grew up poor, that I really couldn't do anything to change my life, and that I would just live a life of obscurity. I used to believe that I needed to change other people to see effective change in my life. I thought that if I could just control somebody, if I could just influence somebody to try to be better, that they would just change and all of a sudden things will be hunky-dory in my life. But that's not how things work. How things typically work is something happens, I choose what I'm going to do about it, and things happen. I prioritize what's important to me. I think about the things I need to do, and I execute. I just do the things that are important to me so that whatever happens, I know that I at least had a hand in it. I took initiative to get something done about it, as opposed to hoping that the world is going to hand me what I want on a silver platter, because it won't. So I'm not going to let that happen. Now, the trick is we don't have enough time in the day to do everything. So I don't know if you've ever been at a sideshow where there's this guy that's the plate spinner, and there's 13 sticks that are all lined up on the stage, and the guy's job is to spin plates on top of the sticks one at a time to get them so that they're all spinning at the same time. And throughout the process, the guy is spinning a plate, getting it going, and while the plate is spinning, he has to go ahead and go to the other side of the stage, start up the next plate, have it spinning, and then while the second plate is spinning, the first one starts toppling over, so he has to go back and re-spin it. A lot of times that's how life is, right? In order for us to have all kinds of great things happening in our life, we need to put things in place and maintain them. It's kind of like having a car or a house, right? If you have a car, there's certain things you need to do to maintain it, right? You need to make sure that you have the tires rotated every now and then, or if the tires are balding, well, they have to be replaced. Otherwise, they're going to end up wearing a hole in it, and you're going to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere on the side of the road, and that's just not a good thing. And on the side of a house, if you're not maintaining your house and keeping it nice, chances are you're wearing holes in it. You might end up seeing problems when you're trying to sell the house because it's a mess and it's difficult for even a really deep cleaner to do anything about it. So we need to set things up in our life and maintain them for us to get the things that we really want out of life. Now let's talk about giving up excuses. Now, I used to blame circumstances for my problems, and I used to say, okay, well, coworkers, I'd be doing a lot better at my job if it just wasn't for Sue Ann or for Rob or for Joe. Now, let's be honest, Rob, Joe, and Sue Ann, they had their own things going on in life, and they made choices to help them do what they needed to do for them. But I let their actions negatively affect me, and I would blame them for them. Now, I also used to think that poverty was a circumstance that I couldn't get over, but we've been working very hard over the last 12 years to obtain the things and the status that we've gained over time. But that's been 12 and some change years of just grueling hard work. And another thing I used to blame was not having enough time. The trick about that excuse is when I would say I didn't have enough time to exercise, or I didn't have time to study, or things like that, I miraculously made time to play video games. So, sure, I had all kinds of time. I just chose not to use it towards the things I was complaining about, or the things I was making excuses about. So that didn't really help me when it should have. And another thing is I failed to realize that when I was blaming other things, I was giving power to those other things that I was blaming. Like Bob, my coworker, by blaming him, I was unwittingly giving him power over my life when I should have been the one in control of my life by taking responsibility. But instead, I was using him as an excuse for me not doing the things that I needed to do at the time. And after realizing that the excuses just weren't doing anything for me, I realized this one really important point, and that is I am the single biggest force for change in my own life. It's not whoever is in power in Washington, D.C. It's not the Democrats or the Republicans. It's not my next door neighbor. It's not my coworkers. It's not my circumstances. It's whether or not I'm going to identify what's important to me and act on it. Those are the things that are going to give me the most power in my life and to change things for the better. Now let's talk about the magic arrow formula. I'm not talking about, okay, well, I've got this bow and I'm going to shoot this arrow and all of a sudden good things happen. Though come to think of it, you can think of it like that. But what I'm getting at is this formula right here. You might want to write it down. It's pretty complex. It's E plus R equals O. So the E is the event. That's like your circumstances, what the context is of any given thing. And the R is the response. It's what I do or don't do about it. And the O is the outcome. It's what came of it. So let me give you a couple of examples about the magic arrow formula. So I'll give you positive and negatives in two different veins. The first one I'll talk about is money, right? So say I needed more money and I decided to go deliver pizza. And every week I worked about 15 hours and I brought home about $200 extra that I had not budgeted for before going out and working for delivering pizzas. Now, I have a choice there. The event is $200 came into my pocket that I did not have before. Now, my response could be, hey, I'm going to go to the bar and have drinks. I don't really go to bars. I really don't drink. But for the sake of the example, I'm going to the bar. I'm going to go ahead and drink and party. And by the end of the night, $200 is gone. The outcome is $200 is gone. And I can complain, oh, I don't have enough money. Why am I working delivering pizzas? It's not doing me any good. I'm wasting my time. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is if I got $200 into my account and I took that and I put it in S&P 500 mutual funds. What's the net result? What's that outcome that comes of it? Yes, I worked 15 hours that week. Yes, I made $225 or $200 or whatever. But the net result is because of my response, because what I did about it was I put it aside into an S&P 500 account. Now my net worth has increased by $200. So there's two ways to react to that circumstance or that event. And let's talk about fitness or health, right? I can see that every month my weight goes up a little bit. So I can choose as my response to that and say, the scale might be broken, and do nothing about it. And the outcome is, chances are, if I do the same thing that got me heavier in the first place, I'm probably going to get heavier over time. And I'm going to say, oh, well, the scale's still broken, and not change my life. But if I get on the scale and I noticed a month after getting out of the military, for example, I'm 5 pounds over what I was when I retired, well, chances are I need to do something about it. And if I take that cue as something for me to do something about, I might get back to exercising, because now that I don't have to exercise, I've kind of been avoiding exercising, which has not been really good for me. And now I can see, based on that 5 pounds, I really need to do something to change that. Maybe I need to go ahead and actually track my diet again, and actually go out and run, or at least go and play a sport every now and then. Those kinds of responses, I'm going to expect a different outcome because I'm doing something different in response to a given event or a circumstance. So once again, it's the magic arrow formula. Event plus response gives you your outcome. It could be good, it could be bad, but remember this: you can't change the event. And the way that you can change the outcome is by changing your response. So figure out how you intend to respond and see if the outcome you're getting from that response is what you want. And if it is, great, keep doing that. If it isn't, well, then maybe you need to take a look at what needs to change in your response to get an outcome that's closer to what you want. Now let's talk about giving up complaining, right? Now, usually when we complain, we're complaining about something that we can do something about, but we're either making a decision not to do it, or we're being lazy, or we're just not acting. And by not acting, well, we are acting, we're just spending our time doing different things. Like, we don't, as sane people, usually complain about things we can't control, like gravity. Who's ever said, you know what? This gravity thing, I sure hate that it keeps me grounded to this earth. And I would much prefer it just let me go ahead and fly off into space and die a terrible, terrible death outside the atmosphere. Nobody talks about that. Why? Because we know that gravity is something that we just can't change. It's just a reality. But if we give too much power to our complaints instead of doing something about the things we're complaining about, we're leaving ourselves not only where we're at, but chances are worse off, because we're losing time in that opportunity to make things better for us. So, what can we get from this? Maybe we should stop wasting energy on the things we can't control, like what the Kardashians are doing, or what the newest gossip topic is. Maybe we shouldn't worry about that and spend so much time doing that. But instead, focus on the things we can do. Lay out priorities and say, look, what's important in my life? What kind of things do I need to do to accomplish the things I want to accomplish in life? If it's a relationship, well, how do I make a relationship better? Well, maybe we don't have a relationship. What do I need to do to go find somebody and connect with somebody? There are certain things that we can do once we've identified our priorities. We can educate ourselves a little bit. We can try different things. There's a lot of things we can do once we've identified what our priorities are, and stop complaining about stuff we can't control, and being willing to take action on the things that we can take control of. And the bottom line to this is we create our own reality. We either create it by our action, or we allow it to happen by our inaction. So let's go back to that example of money. So say you've been working for 10 years and you haven't lived on a budget at all for 10 years. So you just kind of spent willy-nilly, You kind of have the regular credit card debt. You got a car loan. Well, that just happens when we're not paying attention to our finances. We tend to want things, and we tend to buy things that we don't need, and maybe live above our means if we don't really know where our means are at. I mean, sometimes people luck out and they're living below their means and they end up with savings, but very few people have that problem nowadays, especially with such widespread access to credit with credit cards. But that's inaction causing problems. Now, on the flip side of that, where action can help you is for 10 years, you know what your means are. You're intentionally living below your means, and you're taking that extra bit that you're not using, and you're paying yourself first and putting money away to buy a house, or putting money away to invest in your future, putting money away for retirement. Well, at the end of 10 years, you actually have something to show for it because you've been making decisions and taking action to get you to a goal, to get you to a priority. So in that way, you are creating your own reality, whereas in the previous example, you're allowing your reality to happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is very general, but it applies in so many cases in our life. And we just need to make sure that even though we don't have time for everything, we make sure that we take the time and make the time for things that matter to us. So we need to sit down and say, what matters to us and what do we need to do about it? So just a quick recap on this. We have a responsibility to take responsibility for everything in our life. If we are radically taking accountability and responsibility for everything in our life, we're going to make different decisions. We're going to do different things. We need to give up excuses, because when we make excuses, we give power to those things that we're letting be excuses for us to not change our life. We also talked about the magic arrow formula, where you've got events and your responses. When you add your responses to an event or to circumstances, you get an outcome. If you're not liking the outcomes you're getting, change your responses until you get an outcome that you do like or that fits with your goals. We want to give up complaining, especially about things that we can't control, and spending time on things that we can control, especially the things that matter most to us. And finally, wrapping up with the idea that we create our own reality. We either do it intentionally by having our responses day in and day out going towards our goals, or we allow them to happen by not taking action. An example of that might be you have a dog and you choose not to take it to obedience school, and the net result is, oh, you've got this dog that's creating a mess all over the house, poops all over the place, tears up your couches, or whatnot. But that's a result of not taking action on the front end. So you get the outcome on the back end based on the actions and inactions that you've taken throughout the process. So we talked about a lot of things today. If you like this video, if you can see value in it, by all means, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to talk about some of the priorities in your life, by all means, go ahead and put it in the comment section down below. I'd love to have a conversation about it. If you'd like to see more content like this, by all means, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And also, you can adjust your notification settings by pushing the little bell icon next to the subscribe button once you are subscribed, so that you can get updates sent to your email box every time something new comes up in the channel. And if you feel that your friends might get some value out of this, go ahead and share it. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're using this free information and just spreading it out to people that can end up benefiting from it. It's available, why not? Thanks so much for your time. I hope you have a fantastic day.